Thanks for pressing play. We're brought to you by our good friends at Oracle NetSuite. To turbocharge your growth, check out netsuite.com/legends. And I'd also love it if you went to nichedownbook.com. My new book with Heather Clancy and Figure Out Why. It's legendary to be different. All right, today we have the amazing Morgan Wright. He's a security guru. And we have a fun, funny, informative, and I would say terrifying conversation about what's going on with technology security. He breaks down for us what is election hacking and what's going on, how to protect yourself from scams, how social media is partially to blame for a scary rise in teen suicides and what parents can do about it, and he tells us why that Nigerian prince keeps showing up in our inboxes. All right. The Ramones said, hey ho, let's go, and Joan Jett said, I don't give a damn about my bad reputation. Welcome, my legendary friends. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Legends and Losers. If you're new to Legends and Losers, I want to thank you for checking us out. If you're a longtime listener, well, there's no excuse for that behavior, but I really deeply appreciate it, and so do all of us here at Legends and Losers. I also want you to know we're on Spotify, so if you're a Spotify person, you can check us out there. And again, if you're new, I hope somebody told you a little bit. Legends and Losers is not your typical business podcast. We strive to have real conversations with people about stuff that matters, conversations that hopefully you believe are good enough to share. And who knows? We believe in a mantra that says one legendary conversation can change your life. And we're trying to capture those conversations in a bottle, if you will. And we're the opposite of a typical dialogue show. So if you're new, it may sound different. It's more like eavesdropping on a conversation in a bar than an overproduced interview. I hope you like crazy diversions because, man, we have some today. Morgan Wright is a former police officer. He spent 18 years in state and local law enforcement, and he was a senior advisor to the U.S. State Department on anti-terrorism and a senior law enforcement advisor to the 2012 Republican National Convention. He's also the president of an outfit called Radius AI. You can find him on Twitter at MorganWright_US. And why not tweet him? Tell him you heard him here on Legends and Losers. Maybe ask him a question. Tell him what your favorite thing that he said on our podcast was. And here he is, my friend, the amazing Morgan Wright.
I feel fit. I feel good. Actually, you know what? I just dived in. It's funny we're having this. It's good. We were going to do this Friday or I think Thursday, but it's good we did it today because over the weekend, some great things have happened. And you and your book, Play Bigger and also Niche Down, actually helped me make a decision on what I just plunged in and did.
Oh, well, tell me all about that, officer.
Well, it's a 15-person startup company. We specialize in active visual analytics. I've already got them working on a category. We're going to dominate this.
Active visual analytics.
Yeah, you use artificial general intelligence. Actually, what we're doing is we're giving computers the capabilities of humans and humans the capabilities of computers. So what the eye can see and the eye and the brain can see is not easily translatable into artificial intelligence. So we're actually working on that, and we're focusing on economic development, transportation, public safety, and national security and defense.
Wow. So that's a big vision you have for this startup.
Is there any other kind?
Well, I mean, I didn't write a book called Play Smaller, now did I?
Yeah, I told him, I said, we had a meeting in San Francisco this last week. I was in town. Actually, we were going to try and do dinner. You were tied up. But yeah, I told these guys, I said, first thing we did, I brought the development team in. We didn't talk about the use cases and all the other stuff. First thing we did was give them a vision. Where are we going to be in 3 years? And why? And why are we going to own this space? And I went through the examples out of the book, and I even told them it's mandatory reading. They have to read Play Bigger, and then the executive team has to read Niche Down. Actually, I bought a couple of books for the guys to do just that. So this is about owning and dominating a space, taking no prisoners. And actually, there was a good line that came out of Mark Benioff's book, Behind the Cloud.
What a great book, right?
A great book. He said, we plan for the company. You don't plan for the company you are. You plan for the company you want to be. And that's what we're doing. We're planning for the company we want to be. And I'll tell you, look, I've worked for some very big companies, Cisco, Alcatel-Lucent. I had a team of Bell Labs scientists. I mean, the frickin' smartest people in the planet, if not the room, or the other way around. These are pretty smart. I'm telling you, I'm working with people who I would stand up against any team. In fact, some of these folks turned down offers from Google and Facebook for $600-700 bills a year to do this because they wanted to do something that had an impact, make a difference. And so we got guys with PhDs from MIT, Harvard, Carnegie Mellon. These are smart people, but what they need, without a vision, the people perish. So it's about giving them a vision. It's about giving them a category to own. It's about getting them behind the thing. Because look, 10% product, 90% sales and marketing.
Wow, 10% product, 90% sales and marketing.
Yeah, I mean, hey, think about that for a second. You might have the best product in the world, but at some point, if nobody knows about it, who's going to buy it, right?
You're singing to the choir here.
I know.
Yeah.
I was singing to the choir earlier. Yes.
Well, you've been singing to the choir since we got started here.
Yeah.
And in all seriousness, it drives me crazy when great technology doesn't go anywhere because of shit category design, shit marketing, shit sales. It's like, there's a lot of innovation that gets left on the cutting room floor. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of my favorite examples was the Segway. That thing's an incredible piece of technology, and it didn't go anywhere because there was no category design.
That Segway broke both my arms.
Did it really?
Yeah, we had a smart guy from Cisco. We had a team building event one night in Washington, D.C., and the smart guys figured out how to take the 5-mile-an-hour key and turn it into the 7-mile-an-hour key. So as I learned, Segways don't go up and over obstacles. They stop. I went over the top. I landed like this. It hurt like hell. Long story short, or as you say, long story longer, but long story short, I went in, a Army doc, guy who retired, looked at my x-ray, said, you got 5 breaks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had a break here. I had 2 breaks here, a break here, a break here, and a break here. I was in casts on both arms for 12 weeks. I just lost your audio. You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. I was just looking something up on the internet. I wanted to check something as you're talking. How do you wipe your bum?
Angles. It's like playing pool. It's all about angles. So what I learned was the cast ended up being like a lever. Remember Archimedes, give me a lever and I can move the world? Just getting it in the right place. However, the more difficult thing was taking showers. So I came up with a way to wrap my cast. It made me look like a serial killer. So every time I checked into a hotel, I had to say, look, I'm not doing that. So what I had was saran wrap that went around my cast. The rubber gloves went over my fingers and down over my cast. Then I used athletic tape to seal the glove over the saran wrap at here and at the elbow. So that way I could actually use my fingers and wash my hair. But I looked like a serial killer when I'm checking in. So I had to, serial killer.
How many weeks were you like this, Morgan?
Well, 12 weeks. I was on the front page of the International Association of Chiefs of Police magazine getting an award in the 2005 conference they had up in Boston, Massachusetts. And there I am on the front page of this with both arms in casts.
Oh, that's great. Now, I was just checking as you were talking. So the guy that bought Segway, his name was Jimmy Hessenelden, Heselden, and so I think he bought it from Dean Kamen, who was the founder, if I'm not mistaken. But you know this story, right? You know what happened to him?
There are so many stories. I forget. I don't want to pretend that I remember it. I don't.
Okay, well, he died on the Segway. He drove it over a fucking cliff.
Oh, it's not funny, but it's ironic, shall we say.
No, look, accidental death, not funny. Asterisk, this is fucking funny, though. I mean, it's terrible, but it's funny. He died on the thing. I mean, it's... Anyway, have you, speaking of dying on these things, so have you heard of the Santa Cruz One Wheel?
No, I don't think I have.
So it's essentially a giant skateboard with this big fat ass wheel in the middle of it. And I don't know much about the technology, but the way it works is very Segway-like in that the way you weight the thing controls how it moves and how fast it goes. And, you slow down by leaning back and you speed up by leaning forward. Very Segway-esque, right? and it's becoming reasonably popular as a mode of transportation. And I've been wondering, is this, going to do what the Segway was sort of the original dream of sort of changing transportation in urban areas, blah, blah, yada, yada. Anyway, so my wife bought one of these things for my nephews to fuck around with. And so we sent them home with this thing. And of course, their father, my brother-in-law, Michael, unbelievable guy, one of my favorite people, he goes off on this thing with the boys, right? And at first, he, best I can tell, I don't know if he completely dislocates his knee, but like his knee gets very jacked. Like when your knee is like an inch and a half in the wrong spot and it's sort of got to get whacked. Good. Yeah. So I don't know if he's torn some shit or what he's done. But of course, Michael being Michael, dudes, look, we think we're still 17, right? He gets back on this thing and he gets it going full throttle. Oh, that's very excellent of you. Very excellent. I love that. Now, what size iPad is that? What is that?
That's the iPad Pro. So it basically can substitute as a laptop. And I take this with me when I go do some meetings and stuff. Yeah, it's.
I didn't know they made an iPad that big.
Yeah, man.
Do ladies on the airplane say to you, "Excuse me, sir, but you have a rather large iPad"?
No, not iPad.
And I love that you have niche down on it. Or now, I got to ask you: do you say niche or niche?
It's like, is it a cache of weapons or a cache of weapons? I don't know.
I like cache.
I just bought your damn book, so I mean, what do you care?
I don't. I love that you bought it. Thank you very much. And I'm sure Amazon, who takes a massive percentage of that book, will love you for it too.
Yeah, just a guy that I follow, Michael Hyatt. I think he just put out one of his latest books, completely self-published, including the audiobook, because I think a lot of folks are going, yeah, it's great, but boy, by the time you get done, you're like one of those guys that sells 1 million records and you make $4.72.
It's really weird. I think. Look, and I might be wrong, so don't take this to the bank. I think on the physical book, they take 30% after production costs when you self-publish. Because Heather and I self-published Niche Down. The first one we went the traditional route with HarperCollins, and then I think it's the same on the audio book. Excuse me, on the digital book. I think they take 30, but on the audio book, they take 70. We get 30. And it's like, what? And look, I don't want to sound too terrible. They provide an amazing platform. It's something that didn't exist before, and it's an amazing thing to think that you can sit there and you and a buddy, in this case Heather and I, with a Word document, and like you press a button and it's a book. Now, by the way, it took 15 hours on the fucking phone with them to make that press the button part work. I was stunned. I figured, Amazon being such an amazing company, that the self-publishing platform for authors would be just like, it would sing and it would dance and it would, no, terrible, absolutely terrible, unbelievably way harder than it should be, incredibly shocked. But that said, even with that giant, asterisk, it's still a pretty amazing thing that you can take a Word document, do your whatever massaging that you have to do, and then, you're on a platform that sells 70 to 80% of the books, at least in America, and some giant percentage worldwide.
And a huge long tail on it, too. I mean, anything you want is small bookshops can't compete with it anymore because you cannot carry the volume and the massive amount of titles.
And the other thing is to be global. Like yesterday morning, I think it was on LinkedIn, but talking to a new reader of Niche Down in India. And he and his partners run an accelerator, and he had read Play Bigger, and he was about halfway through Niche Down, and they were excited, and they're making all their companies read it. And here I am sort of having this conversation with this guy in India. And the other thing, of course, about when you do the Amazon self-publishing thing, Heather and I finished the book in late June, early July, and it was out on, I forget the exact date, but like July 16th or 14th.
Yeah, very short cycle compared to other stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and when you go the traditional route, you hand in the manuscript, and then you wait for 9 months.
And by that time, a lot of the information could be dated. Somebody may develop the cure for cancer, and your whole book, is zero. I'll tell you, a good tool to use. Have you ever heard of Scrivener?
Scrivener. It's
Scrivner. I'm using it to write a novel. I've used it for other stuff. It comes from a site called Literature and Latte, but if you just look up Scrivener, one of the things they do is you can publish in any format, including Kindle, KDP, EPUB, whatever it is. And this will do all the work for you. You can collaborate, you can share, you can do all, because doing it in a Word doc is painful. I know I just finished a 55-page collaborative report with 3 other guys, and it's like, never again. Never again, because version control is an issue.
Oh
rolling
my God. Track changes has been possessed by Satan now, hasn't it?
I'm telling you, and I kept telling these guys, we need version control. I finally said, I'm done, because after about the 5th time they came back to me, said, hey, you haven't answered the comments. I sent them back all 4 previous documents where I'd answered every single comment. I said, here it is. Here's my bio. That's it. I'm out. I felt like Mark Cuban on Shark Tank. I'm out. And that's it. And that's the last time I will ever do anything like that, because now this is why I took this position. I said, look, I have some ideas. I think I'm at that stage in life where I say, let's go make something happen and let's build something. You can do well and do good at the same time. It's not mutually exclusive. And we've got a team of dedicated people. But I tell you, I will not waste my time anymore on efforts with people like that, because I have more years behind me than I have ahead of me. I'm not going to waste my time on this idiotic stuff anymore.
It's amazing how, let me say it maybe this way, as you have spent more time on the planet, it gets very focusing, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we're just not doing that. Like I'm sure you get this one. I get this one all the time. I get an email from somebody, oh, love your stuff, blah, blah, yada, yada, which is, of course, always nice. And then they say, I'm going to be in the area and I'd like to take you out to dinner and network with you.
I don't get that. I do a lot of stuff, obviously on the media, on Fox. I write for The Hill now on a regular basis. I'm their national and cybersecurity contributor. But I get something very similar where I get people writing me back, and you know what they want from me instead? Hey, because I'll write about quantum computing, or I'll write about the threat of encryption, or I'll write about AI or the Russians, and what they're doing. And I get 3,000 people come out of the work break going, oh, we've got this. We've got this great solution. And I said, so a couple of them, I say, so what do you want me to do about it?
Yeah.
Well, it'd be great if you could mention it on air. I don't know you. I don't know your company. I don't know if it works. Besides that, I don't shill for people. I said, so what is the end game here? So I had one guy say, well, we'd really like for you to review it. I said, great. That's $500 an hour.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing on that, I got asked to give a positive review of this company's technology, which a company I'd never heard of and all this sort of stuff. And the guy said he was a big fan of the podcast and this and that. I said, like my thing is authenticity, right? That's my thing. Like, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it or anything, but like, I agree with Eric Weinmeier. The world doesn't need more bullshit. And now, if I were to endorse your company and product, having never heard of you, never seen it, like, what kind of a lying bastard? Like, who do you think I am? Are you out of your mind? But it is funny when you, it must be a big deal for you. You must get hit all the time with this stuff.
I do. I've got people go through my contact form on my website or on LinkedIn. I'll get, the other thing too that irritates me on LinkedIn. I don't mind LinkedIn. I'll pretty much take any connection that comes along because it's about networking.
Yeah, me too.
Facebook, I'm very, very restrictive about what I do. But LinkedIn, but then the ones I don't like are the ones the minute you connect with them, all of a sudden they're hard pitching you for services. I'm a business coach. I do this. You need this. I've seen you and you need this. And I'm going, you don't know squat about me and you're trying to sell me something. Why don't you start a conversation first? Why don't we get to know each other instead of the hard sell right up front?
Yeah, don't sell me or market to me on LinkedIn, at least directly. If you're buying ads or whatever, or you're posting, have at it, whatever you want to do. But when you reach out to me personally like that, and the first thing you want to do, the other one I get a lot is, we get pitched all the time for people who want to come on the podcast. And I'm constantly amazed by how, particularly PR people, they don't understand how to pitch a podcast. They just say, Jimmy or Jennifer is really awesome and they love your show and they want to come on.
Well, that describes 99% of the American public for you.
Well, no, there's a lot more than 1% who think I suck, and there's a lot less than 99% even paying attention. But it's like you got to make it easy for me to say yes, right? It's like I got to Google your ass now, and it's incredible. But now listen, changing topics, I wanted to ask you. So hey, Putin, what's up? Like help frame for me. You know, we're in this election cycle in the United States, and it's a huge topic. And so just tell me, what's your assessment of this quote unquote election hacking?
Well, first of all, actually, that was one of my columns for thehill.com. You can check me out there. I wrote about it there. I said there's a difference. The difference between influence and interference is how we respond to things. What the Russians have been...
Hold on, slow down there, handsome. Could you say that one again nice and slowly for the kids who didn't go to college here?
Yeah. The difference between interference and influence determines how we respond to what happened. For example...
Interference and influence. And how do you distinguish between the two?
Two different things. So interference, when you start talking about interference, you're actually talking about a violation of sovereignty. For example, there was, and everybody agrees, there is absolutely zero evidence that a single vote was changed. Nobody messed with our election infrastructure.
So when I read, actually, I heard this just this morning on the television news, that quote unquote, study after study shows that there's almost very close to 0% voter fraud in the United States. That is to say, people showing up and voting when they shouldn't be. And there has been almost zero indication of voter hacking. That is to say, somebody going into an electronic system of some kind and changing the vote from Democrat to Republican or whatever. So do you think those two things are true, that voter fraud and voter hacking is not happening? Or how do you think about that?
I think voter fraud is happening, but to what level? That's where reasonable people disagree. Is it a lot? Is it a little? Depends on where you're looking at. But there's been no recorded instances, at least from a nation state, acting against the United States. Because you got to remember, there's 3,200 counties, 19,000 cities, 50 states. I mean, you've got lots and lots of voting systems out there. So it becomes very difficult. But that's interference. That's a sovereignty issue. However, influence is a valid national objective of a nation state. And look, by the way, one of the early articles I wrote on For the Hill, and I've talked about how the United States, guess what? I said, imagine this, though. Imagine this. Imagine if we discovered that the Russians were given $1 million to conduct spoiling operations to spread disinformation and rumors and stuff and generally cause discontent. And they go, oh, yeah, that's what happened. I said, no. That was us with Venezuela back in the 1970s. The CIA spent $1 million on spoiling operations. If you go back and read the bios of all the previous, what they call DCIs, the Directors of Central Intelligence, every one of those, what did we want to stop the spread of in the Western Hemisphere? Communism. We did everything we could to influence elections. So this is a time.
So we the United States have been quote unquote meddling, whatever that means. I don't even know what that means. In foreign elections for generations, right?
At least since probably the CIA was created, came out of the OSS after World War II. So probably since, the late 40s. Now, you got to remember something, though. Here's the thing. Russia is very good at this. Not only does Russia have all the grandmasters of chess, a lot of them, but in 1917, the first secret police was created. It was called the NKVD, or the Cheka. The Cheka became the NKVD. The NKVD became the KGB, which now is the FSB and SVR. They're modern spy agencies. These guys have been doing this for... Not
to mention the DOG and the FART and the IUD.
Yeah. Well, the IUD, that's a little hidden. We can't talk about that. But seriously, I mean, it sounds like a lot of acronyms, but here's the point. A lot of folks, and this is why in the article I had to kind of explain and just kind of lay it out, because everybody wants to bash Facebook. And look, I've done my Facebook bashing, but you're telling me in 2016, a bunch of smart people but kids who have no access to classified information, who didn't even get the benefit of what the United States government has built. It's called the Domestic Security Advisory Council, the DSAC. The whole purpose of that is to give industry and especially like media companies a heads up. Hey guys, there's some targeting here going on. The only person who wrote about this, who discovered the Internet Research Agency running out of Russia, was a frickin' UK reporter that wrote about it in 2015 that laid out the entire operation for the world to see. And guess what? even with that, our intelligence community missed it. So don't go blaming Facebook and Twitter and those guys in 2016 because they missed the boat. The Russians had a 100-year head start on running influence operations. That being said, I give Facebook a ton of credit for the fact is that they just exposed 32 pages and some influence operations trolls. So my question is, where's Twitter? Where's Google? Where's Reddit? Where's Yahoo? Where are all these other people coming out now? Facebook took a beating in the stock, in the press, but they still came out and they said, hey, look, people thought, hey, you're just doing it to take the heat off of it. No, this operation was in progress for a long time. They shared it with the government. They did not give attribution. They didn't say, well, we think it's the Russians. All they said was, here's what's going on. Here's the pages we take down. Now the government takes that information, combines it with their classified information from their own sources and methods, and now they can provide attribution. It is not the role of private industry to attribute something to a nation state. That's the role of government. And I think we're starting to get to the point to where I think Facebook is going to set a model for how all future digital media companies look at, analyze these influence operations, share the information with the government. Because I put it in the article, I can't remember who said it now, but it was a Supreme Court jurist. But he said, look, sunlight is the best disinfectant and electric light is the best policeman. Once you have the transparency and awareness, you can't stop stupid people from being stupid, right?
Yeah.
But you
so,
can
let me slow you down here a second, Morgan. So, and if I'm thinking about this wrong, then re-swizzle my brain. In my mind, there's two things. There is hacking. Mm-hmm. So I do something, typically a technical something, or maybe it's just phishing.
Compromise the system, get into a system.
And I get into the system and I steal things. I steal emails. I steal data. I do
credentials.
Per our earlier point, I change something, I change a record, I change a vote. So to me, that's a technical hacking that occurs. And then the second thing, which is I think the thing you were just on, is I set up a bunch of, quote unquote, fake news, and I figure out using digital means, ways of spreading things like, Hillary Clinton, her mother was a hamster, right? Or whatever.
And her father smelt of elderberries. Yes.
Exactly. And so I spread that. And then all of a sudden, a third of America thinks that, she's related to elderberries. And so, and I think these things get confused a lot, at least when you turn on the TV or you fire up your web browser and you look at news. And so it sounds like what you're describing is more of the spreading disinformation than technical hacking. Is that what's really going on?
Yeah, I mean, now they did use some hacking to get information to make the influence operation more legitimate, like when they got into John Podesta's account and hacked the DNC. But the actual influence operations are psychological warfare. It's psyops, really, designed to get you to pit people against each other. I actually heard a good statement, and I wish I could remember who said this. I want to give proper attribution. But they said, look, the Russians aren't a fan of Trump. They're a fan of chaos. But most people don't realize Russia, from a population standpoint, is about 1/3 the size of the United States.
Yeah.
We got 3 times the number of people. We're still the number one economy in the world. So
they Russia, just want us to be yelling at each other and
divide and conquer. It's divide and conquer because, look, there's stuff going on in Syria. There's stuff going on with Iran. There's stuff going on with Israel. You got China and the issues with that. You got North Korea. As long as they can keep us fighting many battles on many fronts, it gives them a strategic advantage of which they can't make up for in numbers, so they make up for it in tactics. If this is classic Sun Tzu, go read Sun Tzu and find out how a small force can defeat a superior force.
Yeah, in this case, they're just keeping us super confused. And the thing that blows me away is, why do we fall for it so easily? When people read the article that says Hillary Clinton's related to elderberries, they believe that stuff, and I don't understand why we don't look at the source. I mean, I have gotten more and more focused on, because of all this stuff, who's saying this? Is this, you pick your source, Fox News, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, or is this somebody I never heard of? It's easy to put up a website that looks like a quote unquote legit media company, but you've never heard of this thing, and so the Daily Forecaster, or so I don't know. You make up some name that sounds like it's a real.
How about just the Onion? You know how many legitimate stories people have attributed to the Onion, even though they say it's satire?
Isn't that great?
People believe what they want to hear. So if you already have a predisposition to believe Hillary Clinton is related to elderberries, when you hear something, it's a bias. It reinforces what you already believe. You're more willing to share it. I had people look on a couple law enforcement groups I'm in, share some stuff that was like, so-and-so hates cops and this and that. And then you drill down on the thing of the story, and it's some blog you never heard of, and it's a bunch of conspiracy theories stuff. And I'm saying, quit spreading this crap, Yeah. Look, if cops do wrong, then they do wrong. If they do right, then they do right. But let's not start making something up just simply to satisfy somebody's urge to say, hey, I'm angry at something. Let's go make up some information. So I think the reason influence operations work is because information spreads so fast. And I'll give you an example of this. It's a different way, but in India, over 70 people have been killed now because of spreading rumors about people who are supposed to be pedophiles or sexual child offenders on Instagram. And so people say, this is the guy. So now if you go look, easy to go look it up. Many news stories coming out of India. Over 70 people have been killed simply because of rumors that have been spread because of what's gone on Instagram. So that's the deadly side of it. Those are the things that can actually happen when you don't vet the sources, or you just let the echo chamber happen. I mean, you hear what you want to hear. So why is it that most people of one party watch one station and most people of another party watch another station? Because it aligns with what they already think, feel, and believe. So they want to hear that. It's very difficult to get people like you or some good friends of mine. I have a good friend of mine. We're about as opposite end on the spectrum as you can be. He's a Jewish lawyer from Connecticut that actually was an intern on the Watergate Commission back when Nixon was being impeached. Wow. And I'm a Kansas farm boy on the other hand. But yeah, we played in a band together. We're good friends together. We talk all the time. We have disagreements over politics. We end up with a drink and we move on our separate ways because we can agree to disagree and be friends. And I think the art of that is being lost, and that's what the Russians are using. The Russians are better at this than the Chinese are by far. The Chinese are just hacking to get information and find out what's going on.
Traditional hacking, like phishing or technical hacking, as opposed to this
influence operation, spreading disinformation. Yeah.
So you think the influence stuff is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is more effective or more dangerous than the, I don't know what to call it, the technical hacking?
Yeah, because we can come up with countermeasures for hacking. In fact, they have some things out now. It's called the Elections Infrastructure Information Sharing Analysis Center. These ISACs were created starting from a presidential order in 1998 that Clinton signed called PDD 63. My team was part of the first group of people that created the first ISAC for the financial services sector, the FS ISAC. So they have been sharing information. So we'll get better at deflecting attacks, identifying spear phishing and phishing attacks, and making things better. But here's the thing. You can make a jail as secure as you want, but if you got a dumbass guard on the front who believes that you're really there to help his client and he unlocks the door and lets you in, as Ron White said, the comedian said, there's just no fixing stupid.
I love that guy. He's one of my favorite comedians. He is so fucking funny. He's got this other joke about, he says, I'm trying to remember now how he sets it up. But the joke essentially is, he says, you ever take a shit so big your pants fit better? And he says, I think I'm a couple of big dumps away from a whole new wardrobe.
Yeah.
Oh, the other one I love of his is, he says, once you've seen one woman naked, you want to see all women naked.
And it's just that setup. And it's just, it's like, I got arrested one time for being drunk in public. I wasn't drunk in public. I was drunk in private. They threw me into public. He
talked about getting thrown out of a bar in Manhattan, if I remember. I love that one. Yeah, I wasn't drunk in public. Yeah. Oh, he's so funny.
But kind of along those lines, let me tell you, here's the thing we're dealing with. We're dealing with a country that from an adversarial standpoint is a very formidable adversary from an influence operation standpoint. Why? Because they've been honing their skills for 100 years, and they are far ahead of us in figuring out how to use digital and social media to create those things, to get people to go to events, to take certain actions. They were doing this back when they wrote a fake letter. By the way, they were the ones responsible for writing a fake letter that said the CIA was responsible for inventing crack so that blacks would become addicted to it and get arrested for crime. That was a Russian KGB operation.
Oh, my God. You know, they're so good at this. I actually think they've got their head up their ass. I think the aha for the Russians is, why don't you set up a company that does digital marketing and growth hacking? Because if I could hire them to promote my podcasts and my books, I would be the biggest podcaster and author in the history of the world, right? And you could hire them to market your new company and like all of this stuff. I think they could make zillions of bucks selling this expertise. The other thing, and this is just a side note, I don't know why. A buddy of mine a while ago, I wish I could remember who wrote the article. The article was about how in the United States, politics is the new religion.
Yeah.
And that politics is actually a layer above religion now, because we just side with wherever we side. And I don't know why that is or how that happened, because I look at it, and I live in a very liberal part of the country, and I don't consider myself a liberal or a Democrat, or I think that I don't understand why people associate themselves that way. I try to be somebody who thinks. And, you know, there's some things that our current president has done that I think are actually not that bad. And then there are other things that he's done that I think are actually pretty horrible. But regardless of it, I try to take my personal opinion about, in this case, the president, as a human being, about whether I like him or I don't like him, and try to move that as best I can to the side and try to look at it on an issues basis. Mm-hmm. That's sort of point A. Point B, I try super hard, particularly online, to take a very open to communication, open to different points of view perspective. So, for example, I've been having this debate with people on our Facebook group about universal basic income. And it's an idea that I don't think is a good idea. However, there's a lot of people who think it's a good idea. I think it's important to have the debate. Mm-hmm. And what the reason I sort of injected this was I didn't hear enough of debate on this topic, and so I wanted to begin to have it. And even with people who say to me, and even if they're very aggressive and maybe not that appropriate about it, have a differing point of view, I try to be very gentle, particularly online, and welcome that into the conversation, because I think the dialogue is much more important than any position that I have. And who knows, I may end up feeling differently in 10 years than I do today. I don't know. But I think the debate and the discussion is the important part. And so I guess my question to you is, and I know this is a little bit of a stretch, but when did we get to this place where we can't actually think and talk and dialogue with each other, even to your point earlier, with people who have meaningfully different positions than we do, and we just immediately go to this stupid yelling business and listen to our own echo chamber?
I'll tell you, I have a theory about this. I don't know if I'm right, but I was actually doing a lot of research on the impact of social media on teens. And when you look at the teen suicide rate and how it's just skyrocketed, when the teen suicide rate stopped dropping and started going up was 2007. Guess what was introduced in 2007? The iPhone. Guess what came out in 2008? Mobile Facebook for the iPhone. And if you look over time, in fact, they just come out.
Is that really when the suicide numbers changed in a meaningful way?
Absolutely. Look, I've actually done a couple webinars on this. This is one of the things that's kind of an area of my passion. I'm looking at, how do we turn parents into sheepdog parents? In other words, there's three kinds of people in this world. There are sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs. How do you turn parents into sheepdogs? You got to give them information. They have to know that there are certain apps out there like Kik, K-I-K, and music.ly. There are a lot of bad things happening on there. So, yeah, in fact, when you look at it, the Centers for Disease Control put out the national statistics. By the way, the most impacted group of people are girls aged 10 to 14. When you look at the suicide rate, 0 to 9, and then age 10 to 14, it goes up 320%.
Oh, girls 10 to 14 are killing themselves in our country? Record
numbers. Absolutely.
And so, you think it's directly attributable to social media and smartphones?
I would. Here's the way I put it in the online presentation I did, and the one I do a couple of these just local and stuff. But if you track, there is a correlation between the rise in social media and the rise in the suicide rate for teens. In fact, homicide used to be the second leading cause of death for boys age 15 to 18, basically, or 15 to 19. It is now the third leading cause of death. Suicide now has overtaken and become the second leading cause of death. In every age group, it has gone up. orders of magnitude, and it directly parallels the growth of social media. In fact, the top 4 social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp, guess who they're all owned by? Facebook. And you've got Snapchat, you've got Twitter. But when you look at the rise of all of those, in direct correlation is the rise in the suicide rate. So the only reason I say that is to kind of bring it back into context. I think you could go back and start seeing a delineation to where it was the accessibility from a mobile standpoint, the ability to instantly respond, to have things at your fingertip. It's that constant feeding. In fact, it was a professor out of Stanford. I think his name was Fogg, F-O-G-G. He invented this thing called persuasive technology. And his first students were the kids who created Instagram that sold to Facebook, I think, for a couple $2 billion. Because if you think about it, it's that constant need to have constant validation. You got the little bell over here that's ringing to say, hey, you have a message, you have this. So it says persuasive technology is how do you manipulate people's behaviors and emotions? And I think it became so easy once we got into that mobile environment that it was a very short hop, skip, and a jump to start manipulating political discussion and stuff. Look, before Obama became president, look, full disclosure, I didn't vote for him. But I'm one of those people, look, I wake up the next morning and I go, yeah, did it suck that my guy didn't win? Sure. But guess what? I'm going to get up, go to work. My life really doesn't change that much. I disagree on social issues, but I never took it personally. And I tell you what, I spent quite a bit of time nuking people off of Facebook and Twitter that says, look, I like conversation. Trust me. I love a good discussion. I love a good back and forth. I was a debate master in high school and college. You could give me any topic. We could go to town on it with facts and stuff. But at the end of the day, we could sit down, have a cup of coffee or drink a beer and still be friends. That I think we started losing about the time mobile technology started invading all aspects of our life.
Wow.
Just a theory.
So do you have additional thoughts, Morgan, on sort of, okay, so if I'm a parent, or in my case, I'm a deeply committed uncle, I have a niece who is 10 or 11 years old. I have 3 other nieces who are 13 now. What should their parents and parents in general be doing to make sure that, we use these technologies as awesome, powerful things as they are, and there's so much awesomeness, I think, about them.
Yep.
But obviously, there's a terrifying correlation here, and I didn't realize it was that dramatic. I knew there was one. I didn't know it was that dramatic.
Hey, when we get done here, I'll send you my little overview and report that'll show you that stuff. I'll tell you, the biggest thing parents can do is stop this crap of saying, well, I don't understand that, so you let the kids do stuff. Look, here's a couple quick things to do. Number one, it's a benevolent dictatorship, not a democracy. We don't vote on where to spend the milk money or spend the mortgage money, right? So you lay down limits. They may not like those, but guess what? It's easier to set down limits now and work through them than it is to let them drive themselves over the cliff and have to deal with this later. And the worst thing in the world, I will tell you this from experience as a detective, as a state trooper, one of the worst experiences of my life was knocking on somebody's door and telling them somebody had died. And I'd done that for people of all ages, young, old, from suicide to traffic accidents to homicide. So, I know this from personal experience that it sucks to do that from my standpoint. And it's devastating to deliver that kind of news. So guess what? Here's what you can do, parents. Monitor what they do. You need to have time limits. They don't need to be on all the time. No phones in the bedroom, no devices in the bedroom whatsoever. 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, boom, they're shut off. They're downstairs, they're charging. Enforce that with things like Custodio or some of the other packages out there that allow you to monitor what's going on. Monitor the conversations that are going on. Understand. Don't be naive. Don't be a neophyte when it comes to understanding what's going on with technology. You don't have to understand how the light switch works to know.
Hold on, Morgan. I want to slow you down for a second, if I could.
You listen too slow. I don't talk too fast.
Hey, I didn't graduate high school, and I consume a tremendous amount of scotch.
You're my kind of guy.
So you think I as a parent should be using apps where I'm literally monitoring the specific things that my children are talking to their friends about on their phones and their computers?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. A lot of predator behavior comes over apps that by the way, Kick is one of the top rated apps used to not only solicit sex with minors, it's also one of the top ways used to distribute child pornography. So if first of all, I did write up on this too. If your child has Kick on the phone, kick it off the phone. You don't need Kick.
What is? Excuse my ignorance. What is Kick?
KIK came out of Canada.
Got to watch those Canadians.
Got to watch them Canadians. But it's kind of a messaging and a social platform to where you can do. Sorry, my cat's back there. I know you have your turkeys. I've got cats. They get jealous when I'm talking.
I got cats now too, Morgan.
Do the cats go after the chickens?
No, actually, in the funniest twist that you could imagine, the kitty cats are terrified of the hens.
This one is so gun shy. I'm telling you, if somebody knocks at the door, she's either buried herself in my lap or she's hiding downstairs. I got two cats, but
what's this one behind you? What's her name?
This one's Rosebud. It's Rosebud and Fanny. Fanny I named after Phantom of the Opera. Her face is like almost all white. In fact, here I'll tell you what. Here for your viewing audience, that's her right there.
Oh, she looks so cute. You got her on your smartphone. Oh, Daddy loves her kitty cats.
All my kids, my youngest just turned 30. So all of my kids have been gone out of the house. So it's like these are substitute. Have no
way too young to have 30-year-old kids.
Look, in Kansas, you start everything young, man. There's nothing else to do. So we start young.
Okay, so I use apps to monitor every fucking thing these little bastards
Well, you don't
do
have.
online.
Here's the thing. Don't monitor everything. Reduce the number of things you have to monitor. By the way, Apple came out with some controls that you can flip on, parental controls. In fact, one of the things that I would do if you have an iPhone is flip on the parental control, put in your PIN. By the way, don't share the PIN with the kids. That's why it's called a parental PIN. But you can prevent them from downloading any additional apps or deleting ones that are on there. For example, like your app that you use to monitor and review and stuff. Kids may not like it at first, but guess what? Again, it's about I would no more give a 12-year-old the keys to my Camaro and let them go drive out in the neighborhood than you should allow a kid to have a phone without and by the way, one of the best things you can do, and these are easy to find on the internet, have an agreement. I'm giving you a smart piece of technology. It can do a lot of things. We have an agreement that says you will do X and we will do X. By the way, parents, unless your child is 18, in any state, I think this goes with any state, they are not allowed to own real property. So in other words, they can't really own the iPhone. They don't get to own cars. So it is still your responsibility. When they turn 18 and they're allowed to serve in the military and vote, you have to kind of cut the cord. But until then, it's your job to give them the habits that will sustain them over their lifetime. And one of the best habits is to not allow social media to run your life. I did a video interview with a buddy of mine and his daughter. She came very close to killing herself. She was doing a lot of self-harm, a lot of cutting. In fact, if you go on Instagram, and I've written Instagram about this multiple times to tell them take down this channel, it's hashtag self-harm with 3 M's. If you go on there, you will find over 2 million posts showing people cutting themselves and the things that they're doing. And these kids get on there and it fuels that and it feeds that. So you've got to monitor, you've got to watch what's going on. You may not like it, but guess what? It sucks to be a parent sometimes because you have to do what's hard, not what's fun to do or what's easy to do. So it's just like in business.
What I'm hearing you say, and you tell me if this is maybe the right way to think about it, we monitor their behavior in the real world.
Yep.
Right? If they don't say thank you, if they don't say please, you say.
If the teacher says they acted up in class, you hear about it from the school.
Right, and you say, hey, say thank you when your grandmother brings you dinner or whatever it is, and the child says thank you, and et cetera, right? So it only makes sense, yeah. And what do we do for our own psyche? Like, how do we make sure that because adults are being influenced in all these ways. And so what do you think we do to keep our own selves from going insane from this technology?
Hashtag be the example. Everybody has to have a hashtag. In other words, I've seen how many times you've gone to a restaurant and you've seen parents doing this instead of talking to their kids. They're sitting like this. The mom's sitting like this. The kids are sitting like this. Everybody's got a smartphone in their face. Nobody's having a conversation anymore. Or my biggest pet peeve, I'll tell you what, if I still had a badge and a gun and the authority to make traffic stops, I would be merciless about writing up parents who are on their phone texting when they've got kids in the car. I mean, I'd write them up anyway, but you've got people driving around, holding their phone or doing this or talking or being distracted, and they've got a 8-month-old or a 10-month-old or teaching junior. I almost got run over one morning. I went out for a run. And I'm watching the van, and I thought the van saw me, and I start to go, and then I stopped because I realized they weren't. it was a young driver with the mom in there, and the mom goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." The kid's got the iPod, those iBuds or whatever, in his ears, and he's driving. And I'm going, "What are you doing?"
Unbelievable.
So, I mean, again,
what's the fine for that? Do you know in most states, if I'm texting and driving, what do they do? What happens?
Virginia, it's like a point system, but I think it's like 3 points and a $250 fine, if not higher. I mean, it's one of those things that's tough to catch. But when they catch you, I mean, it's not fun on your insurance, and it's of quite a few points. At 4 points, I think your license can be suspended. But yeah, it's a major violation. But I'll tell you, it's more than anything else. You have to think about it from this standpoint. And again, I go back to, unfortunately, over the years, I've worked lots of accidents and been involved in lots of investigations where people died. Nobody understands really the impact. If you kill somebody, do you really want to live with that for the rest? Is it worth it for the 10 minutes or 10 seconds of texting that you do on there that you run over a child or somebody crossing the street or hit the back of somebody? I mean, there is nothing going on in this world that requires you to text at that exact moment in time. Look, if we're under nuclear attack, it doesn't make a difference anyway, because unless you got a frickin' shark with laser beams that can shoot down nuclear bombs, we're all screwed anyway. So what's the big deal?
When are we going to get the sharks with the laser beams on their heads?
I've been talking to Dr. Evil about that. I think I'm going to go on Shark Tank, get that, and have a new thing, shark with laser beams.
You're a clever guy.
That's why I'm president now. I don't know, but to me, it's be the example. And I tell you, the ones that I've seen are the parents who don't do what's popular; they do what's right. Parents who don't want to parent do what's popular. Oh, let the kids go. And I tell you, I just put out this tweet a little while ago, and I couldn't believe the number of people that responded to it. But there are parents out there paying $35 an hour for tutors to teach their kids how to play the online game called Fortnite.
There's something fucked up about that, isn't there?
Teaching your kids how to stay inside, not go outside, not see the sun, and stay inside and be – look. And by the way, the other part of the statistic too, that if your child spends more than 10 hours a week on that phone, on social media and stuff, there is a 50% increase in the probability of suicidal ideation and depression. And a good friend of mine, him and I meet every 2 weeks for accountability. He went through this with his son to where he started getting to the point to where he couldn't touch paper. His fingers became so sensitive. You get the crook in their neck because you're watching this, or you're gaming all the time, and you start developing posture problems and you lose fitness. Look, I get it. When I was a kid, but I had a bicycle. I thought it was really cool things to where we had, the little cheapy walkie-talkies and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happened to creativity, invention, and go out, kids? And we used to go out and come home when the street lights turned on. That was your first clue, from the captain that it is safe to walk about the cabin,
Yeah. Yeah, it is amazing. I live in one of the most beautiful parts, I think, of the world. The weather here is incredible. Mm-hmm. And, there are a lot of kids that just don't go outside.
Why?
What? Go to the beach, man. Like
go to the beach.
Go for a hike in the redwood forest. The redwood forest.
But parents don't realize, and they say, well, they're developing other skills. Look, they're losing the ability. And I'll tell you, here's where it's going to. You want to know why a lot of the stuff's happening online? Because we're losing our verbal deconfliction, our verbal skills. We have people who would rather text or send an email than have a conversation with somebody. And it becomes very difficult then for people later on down to actually get up. Think about what we're creating is we're creating a generation of people who will no longer get up and do a persuasive sales presentation or marketing presentation. They just want to simply mail it in or text it in and hope somebody will go online and read it. What happened to the art of oration, and being a persuasive public speaker and defending your ideas? I mean, to me, that's not out of style. I think the ability to be articulate. There we go. The ability to be articulate, to be able to get your point across, to be able to defend your position, have good rational discussions. You can use technology to enhance what you know and what you understand. But I'm afraid that we're going to get down to the point where, remember that song by Zager and Evans in the year 2525?
I don't.
A great song from the late 60s. In the year 2525, if man is still alive. And to talk about machines doing everything for us. I don't want robots to take over my life. I don't want self-driving. I will never, ever get a self-driving vehicle.
I kind of feel the way you do. It's like, no. I drive a 662 horsepower Shelby Cobra Mustang. I want to drive that vehicle.
I have a 2000 Camaro Super Sport, a little over 450 horses, because I made some modifications to the mass airflow sensor. I have ram air induction.
Oh, I love
some
that.
technical things I don't want to go into because it may violate EPA rules. I don't know. I've heard. But no, I'm like me. I take the T-tops off, blast loud music, play damn Yankees, or some stuff, and I want to have fun. I don't want some vehicle to take over driving for me. I just don't trust the technology yet.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. When my wife bought her last car, one of the cars we looked at was the Tesla SUV. I don't know what it's called. And the first question I asked the folks at the Tesla store was, when you park this thing, it connects to your Wi-Fi, right? Right. It then automatically downloads new software and patches and shit, right? Right. Can you turn that off? No.
No.
I said, well, baby, I mean, it's your car. You do whatever you want. But, I don't know about you, but when I download the new update to my iPhone and half the shit breaks and everything moves around and all that, I go crazy. I have dysphaglia, and so this stuff's hard enough for me anyway. And so if that's your car, like the UX in your car changes over, I don't know. Maybe I'm turning into a Luddite.
I don't know, man. Think about this. Do you really want to be going down the 101 and start becoming the real pinball wizard as your car is bouncing off of stuff? Because, my bigger concern too was that, look, the automotive industry is light years behind everybody else when it comes to automotive cybersecurity, getting the right controls in place. By the way, here's an interesting stat. I know this. This will blow your mind. Because remember that 55-page paper I tell you I was working on? It's around automotive. It's the how soon will we get autonomous and connected vehicles, and I'm writing the cybersecurity piece. But anyway, did some research. How many lines of code does it take to run Facebook? I'll give you the answer, 62 million. How many lines of code in a 2016 Ford F-150?
No idea.
150 million.
No way. Whoa.
Yep.
There's 150 million lines of code.
150 million lines of code in the 2614 F-150. So says Ford.
And you don't think they're on top of the security?
Are you kidding me? These guys didn't take it seriously. It took two DARPA researchers to hack a Jeep in through the entertainment system and drive it off into a ditch with a reporter from Wired behind the wheel going, oh my God, we're so screwed. Yeah, they're years behind. In other words, it's like starting a race. It's like starting a marathon and waiting for an hour before you start. You might be a great runner, but guess what? They're too far ahead of you. It's going to be too tough to catch up. And that's where these guys are now. Look, I know the executive director of the Automotive ISAC, Faye Francie. She's doing a tremendous job. She started the aviation one. She's got her work cut out for her. But here's the problem. Coke doesn't want to tell Pepsi. Macy doesn't share with Gimbals their secrets. These guys don't want to actually share threat information because they're afraid that it will expose weaknesses. Their competitors will use it against them, as opposed to, guys, a rising tide floats all boats, from a cybersecurity standpoint. You've got to share threat information. And the financial services industry has been doing this since the year 2000. And not saying that they're the absolute best, but they come as close to the gold standard in terms of best practices, policies, procedures, what they do as compared to any other industry.
Well, and to your point, correct me if, you know way better than I do, but we don't hear a lot of cyber hacking into a bank and steal, using digital technology to move millions of dollars into Bitcoin in Kuala Lumpur Ding Dong somewhere. And now all of a sudden, Bank of America has been hacked and $100 million is missing that got converted to Bitcoin and away they went, right? We don't hear that story, do we?
They're very rare. A bank in Bangladesh is part of the SWIFT system, the financial transaction system. They actually, somebody didn't compromise the SWIFT system. What they compromised was the credentials inside the bank to get into the SWIFT system and move some money around. And there have been, JP Morgan doubled the amount they spent on cybersecurity because somebody did get into the bank. But what happened was they had like 250 servers down there. And on the one server, just one server that they did not have two-factor authentication, another level of it on, that's the one they got in through. So they were actually doing it right. They just missed that one, as opposed to Equifax, the morons who put the most critical systems facing the internet with little or no security, called the Consumer Dispute Resolution Database. So when the folks got in and got all those records, guess what? It was like reaching across the till in the bank, and instead of pulling out just a little cash from the drawer, you got the whole freaking safe.
Incredible. And so the car companies need to do what the banks and financial services companies
They got to get serious. They got to share information. They got to get past this mentality of where they've created silos for themselves. In other words, they're very competitive. I get that. They don't want to share any information, but unless you share, if you have a known vulnerability, chances are I'm going to have a known vulnerability too. Why shouldn't we share that information? Because at the end of the day, KPM is either KPMG or Deloitte did this global study, and they found out that if something happens to a car while it's driving as a result of a breach, it will have an 80% negative impact on the brand and whether or not people will want to buy that car again.
Yeah.
Other than if you're Chipotle, people keep going to Chipotle, and
I
people
don't understand why that company's still in business.
There was a line out the door.
It seems like you turn on the TV every day or fire up your browser and there's been some other contamination. And I remember when they first started to get popular, they were very popular here in Silicon Valley, and I'd go visit, some company, and they'd always want to go to Chipotle for lunch or whatever. And I quite like the place. It's a great concept. It's a great niche down. But I'm not fucking ever eating there again, ever. You're done. You're done. I don't know how many times it's happened, but it's happened many. Like, you're done.
It's systemic. It tells you something about, if it was just one isolated place, that's one thing, but it's happening too many different places. It tells me about the company, which, that goes back to it, right? So it just kind of bring all this stuff back full circle. Look, human nature is something that we still don't understand. We've been barely civilized for 2,000 years. We got a long way to go. And this is the hardest thing to get across in the automotive industry, is for these guys to share information, because they are so paranoid that if I share this, it's going to reflect negatively on us. I told them, what I told one manufacturer? I said, what reflects negatively on you? It's when you had a data breach and you were told that you could have prevented this and you chose not to.
Somebody dies.
Yeah, that's what's going to reflect negatively. Not the fact that, hey, we found this, we proactively did this. Look, as you're finding out in many places, if you get out ahead of it, you're transparent with people, you say, this is what happened, we screwed up, and this is why, here's what we're doing to fix it. I give credit to the CEO who came in after, what was his name, Kopernik at Uber, and replaced him after they had the breaches. And because I deleted the Uber app, I still have not downloaded it, because I was so pissed at these guys about how long they hid the data breach, how long my information stood out there compromised, and they didn't do squat.
I'm a Lyft guy now.
So that's what I do. And but I give the new CEO credit for coming in and say, look, we're going to be more transparent. But you find out about what they did about using former CIA operatives to steal intellectual property, planting people, just bad business. And so the new CEO is in the unfortunate position of having to peel, the Band-Aid off. It's going to hurt for a while, but I think he's doing a much better job than the previous one did, because he's more transparent, more authentic about it, and being more upfront about where they screwed up and what they're doing to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also an example to me of the power of a category king position, right?
Yep.
That they're in such a strong position that they could do all this nasty shit, have all this bad PR as a result of their bad behavior,
and still have the market cap they do.
Yeah, it really it's an amazing thing. Now, I did want to touch on scams.
Yep.
So there's two that I'm aware of that are sort of proliferating. One of them is someone calls your house and there's a crying younger person on the phone, your nephew.
And it says, hey, grandma, it's me, or hey, uncle, it's me. And the minute
I'm in jail.
This is what you do. And you go, Bobby, is that you? Yes, it's Bobby. You give them the name to use. This is a version of the hey, grandma, it's me scam. And they make up a story about, the reason I sound funny is I was in an accident, my nose is broken, or I'm in jail, I need the money right away. You talk with the State Department consulate person. That has been going on for a long time. In fact, I remember a
lot of people fall for this. Someone in my family did. My wife's uncle fell for this and gave them, I forget what the number is, but I mean, it was thousands of dollars, because they thought they were getting a nephew or a grandson out of jail with paying the cops the bond.
What they do is they do things. They do create a sense of urgency and a fear of loss. So if you don't do this, I'll go to jail or something bad will happen. They tell you, don't text, don't call. I got to, folks, there's an easy way to have a code word. Somebody calls up and says, hey, grandma, I'm in jail. First question is, who is this? Well, grandma, it's me. Who's me? Always answer a question with a question. Who's me? Even if they have the name, it's Billy. Great, Billy. What's the code word? If this is really you, what's the code word?
Is that the simple way to do it? We have an emergency code word in our family. When the shit's going down, we say floppo, and unless you say floppo, nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Now, the other one, which I sent you the other day, which was very entertaining.
By the way, I got a week after you sent it to me. They sent it to me as well, a version of it.
So this one's great, right? They send you an email. The subject line has a password that you have used. In my case, it was a password I used a long time ago, but still, it was like, oh, wow. Now, I read the email, and the email is bullshit. I mean, you could tell it is, but it's like they have my password, which is why I sent it to you. It's like, what is going on here? And, of course, the email says, we have installed some nastyware on your computer, and we have photos of you playing with yourself and watching nasty videos, and we're going to send them to everybody you know unless you Bitcoin me. In my case, I think it was like $3,600.
Mm-hmm.
So, A, how prevalent is that we have video of you playing with yourself in front of your computer? And B, like, what do you do about, like, how do we as a society get rid of that stuff?
Well, it's hard to get rid of, and I'll tell you why. The Nigerian scam letters, and they call them the 19s, I think. Why do they still keep coming out? Because they still keep working. People still fall for that. I'm a prince. I've got I got $20 million, and I need somebody in the U.S. to do it. People still fall for that one. People still fall for that one. There is a certain percentage of society that will always be gullible. In your case, what happened was they went to I think it used to be called Pony Express or whatever. There was a database of hacked, usernames and passwords and stuff. All they did was take that, harvest it, send out these generated emails. Is that on
the dark web, or can anybody go to Pony Express and buy people's
Pony Express is, I think, offline now. It's out of business. But yeah, you can get stuff on the dark web. Things that have been hacked, databases of usernames and passwords. And what they did with you is use what they did to give it credit. In my case, when they sent it to me, there was no password in it. And so I knew it was BS simply because the writing was terrible and everything, but it's the same thing. Here's the other thing too is search tools are your good friend. Take some of that language, put it into a search tool, and in 30 seconds, you're going to pull up, here's all the reports about it, here's what's going on. And the other thing too is it's a sense of urgency. It's the same thing with the grandma scam. They want you to take an action right now. You have a limited amount of time.
24 hours to do it.
Yeah, otherwise it's going to, life's going to end. Well, yeah, if it was
didn't end.
No, and I still die. I haven't seen those videos, so I'm like, what up?
Well, and I got to thank you. Now, I had been doing this before, but you sort of reaffirmed it in our first conversation that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but essentially there's no security expert in the world that doesn't have a piece of tape over the top of the camera on their computer. So I know they didn't have video of me doing shit because that piece of tape is there all the time. They might have had audio of me doing shit. I don't know about that part, but they didn't have video of me doing shit. So I immediately knew it was a scam. But the thing that threw me was because they had a password that I used probably 10 years ago, and I was a stupid user. It was probably the password I used for at least 50% of my shit back then. Yeah. And so it's just disconcerting to see an actual password of yours in that kind of a scam email.
And that's that little element of credibility that makes you doubt your doubt. You doubt, this can't be.
Which is why I sent it to you. I was like, I know they don't have video of anything, but like, what is going on here, right? It's disconcerting that and even though it's a password I haven't used for quite some time, it's still like, it's sort of waxy.
Plants that seed of doubt in your mind, and it's the what if. What if it's true? What if they do have something? I mean, I know, and like with me, when mine came in, I get a lot of those. I just don't worry about it because it's like it doesn't happen. But for most people, in other words, if you're a big sports fan and you know what's going on with the LA Lakers or the Kansas City Royals or whatever you're into, like with me, it's the Notre Dame Irish. You lose that because you don't have that deep knowledge. You don't see what's going on. So because I follow this all the time, I report on it, I talk about it. I'm going to be on Fox Business tonight. Whenever this airs, it's actually will be on a Monday, my time here, but I'm going on with Kennedy tonight on Fox Business to talk about Russia and the elections and the influence. I just look at it differently is that if you do a lot of research, you do a lot of preparation, the key to having a good conversation is in the preparation. It's not, you say, well, you're glib. And I said, no, I'm not glib. trust me, every day I'm reading stuff, I'm looking at stuff, and the writing for The Hill, I'm actually working with an editor who's a Pulitzer Prize winner. This guy makes me up my game. He makes me defend stuff. He makes me go, how did you come up with this? I don't see this link. What about this? And so it's like by the time you get on air, talking with you are like doing a 5 minute, or most segments are 3 minutes on network TV. I've gone to where they've gone 5, 6, 7. I was on with Lou Dobbs here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where we just went on for 8 minutes. And to be able to talk 8 minutes and give new information and not repeat yourself over and over and over and over again, it's not a trick, it's an art, and it comes from preparation and being prepared. And it's like you writing the book Niche Down, writing Play Bigger. You know about category design, you know about the stuff because you lived it, you ate it, you breathed it. I could ask you to fly out and give a talk today. You wouldn't even have to have notes, and you could get up and speak for 2 hours about category design.
Or 2 years if you want.
2 years. 2 hours is probably all we can afford you big, expensive stud you. But yeah, but if you internalize it, you believe it, you can talk about things for a long time. But guess what? You didn't get there overnight. You did it because you wrote the book. You did it because you developed this, because you've lived it. You've done the research. So it's internalized. So
how does the layman, because the other thing I thought after this email is like, this email might actually be very successful for these nefarious bastards, right? Because I think, a lot of guys get this. If they haven't protected themselves appropriately online, they might actually wire these guys $3,600 worth of Bitcoin.
I guarantee you they did. And here's why. When you look at the stats, go to Alexa and look at the top 10 sites that get traffic. I think 6 of them are porn sites. That's why. If I walk into downtown,
I've been a SpankMe.com subscriber for more than 2 decades.
Is that
actually, I should go look. I don't even know if there is a SpankMe.com, but
it's like walking into downtown Pittsburgh and yelling, "Who's a Steelers fan here?" Chances are you're going to find some. It's not that tough, right?
I'd love to have him on the podcast. There's this country star named Wheeler Walker Jr. Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
And he's got all these very sort of incredibly rude country songs.
Yep.
And I think they're very funny. They're certainly not for everybody. But he self-published his first record because nobody would do it, right? And he was going to give up. He was essentially giving up. And he was like, well, he raised $10,000. He recorded the record. And he's like, I'm going to just put this thing out, and I'm going to go back and be, a waiter or whatever the fuck he was doing. I forget. He'd given up. He'd been in Nashville. He'd given up. So he records the record. He puts it out, and he thinks, what's the one, and it's a pretty rude record. What's the one way to reach guys with, a rude sense of humor? So he was the first musician to launch a record on, I think it was Pornhub, but it was one of the big ones. And it worked. And it's a hit record.
There's somebody who understands their target audience, what they appreciate. And guess what? He's a category king now. He's the king of country porn singing or whatever.
Of like rude country. Yeah, because he launched on a porn site. I just thought it was really, really innovative and funny.
But that's why.
So guys are falling for this one. This one's working, huh?
Yeah, because again, 6 out of the top 10 sites are porn sites, or 5 of them anyway.
So how do I know when I get an email like this, whether it's this one or something else that for some reason is a little bit more, I don't know if this is the right word, but credible or concerning than the Nigerian prince? And what lens do I use, Morgan, to know this is bullshit or holy shit, maybe I really need to wire these guys?
You look back to the 1847, Edgar Allan Poe. That's Edgar Allan Poe as your guide. Believe nothing that you hear and only one half that you see. That was his exact quote.
So chances are it's bullshit.
I'd say 99.9999. I have yet, number one, ask your audience out there, how many people have actually clicked on one of those links or replied to those Nigerian emails and become millionaires? Yeah. 0.
Well, the other thing I figured was if this is a legit threat, they're not just sending one email. I mean, they're sending me thousands. The other thing I thought, too, is if you had actually got onto my computer and snooped around and got into my contacts and got into my Dropbox and all that, a video of me taking care of myself, so to speak, is the last thing you do. There's like a lot more other valuable things you would have done to be nasty, right? So it's like, So I think there's a common sense component to it. But essentially, just don't believe them. Chances are it's not true.
Believe only one half that you hear, or believe nothing that you hear and only one half that you see. I'm telling you, Edgar Allan Poe had good And the other thing too is, like I've told a lot of people, is just first thing you do is take a lot of those elements, take it word for word, put it into a search engine, and what you will find is there'll be a FBI bulletin, there'll be a sheriff's office bulletin, or somebody out there said, hey, look, we've looked into this, these are all scams, or a news story that's done an investigative report. You can source it from many different places, but I look at those things. Most of the time they end up in my junk folder, and I don't even worry about them. They just go in there. Here's the thing.
You know what I really wanted to do, and I know you'd advise against this, and of course I didn't, but what I wanted to do is fire an email back and say, hey, listen, I don't know how to do Bitcoin. I'm not a technical person. Why don't we meet in person, and I'll give you 10 grand. Yeah,
well, they wouldn't do it because they're over in India somewhere, or
Morgan, Nepal. I so badly wanted to be in a room alone with this asshole for 20. Listen, I'll take 30 seconds, 20 seconds, and you can have the first two shots. Like and I know this makes me a bad person, but I so much wanted to just pound the shit out of these guys. And these guys ripping off grandmothers and stuff with that scam.
Oh, they're terrible. Let me tell you, here's what happened.
I so much want to be alone with those guys for less than, I don't need more. I don't need even a minute.
Well, here's how you get even with them in cyberspace. They'll never meet you in the real world, as they say. A guy in France was a victim. Somebody called him up to do one of these scams and kind of a ransomware thing where it was like, hey, we're going to install this stuff on your system and tell you if anything's wrong. What they end up doing is install ransomware. It's a scam. So what he sent them said, look, here's a picture of my system configuration. Can you tell me if I'm doing this right? He sent it to the guy over that live chat that you can do when you connect on those things. The guy clicked on it. Instead, what happened was the guy installed ransomware on the bad guy's system. Because they don't expect
this is the security software I've been dying for. I want you broke into my house, now I'm going to fuck you up software.
Guess what? Ron White, you kill us, we'll kill you back.
Yes. Yes. No, that's what I want. I want the best defense is a strong offense that if you get into my system, I'll make you pay. When can I buy that?
Well, actually, guess what? It's going on at the enterprise level. There is a legal theory right now. It's called active defense, which says, can I, if I'm under attack, can I, in a sense, attack back legally and do stuff? And there are companies out there that are working on what's called active defense, which is they're not launching offensive operations, but it's kind of like, I'm going to sit back, but if you hit me, I'm coming after you big time and I'm going to pummel you, but I'm not throwing the first punch.
Yeah,
so
like bombing their servers and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't think we can get a B2 end to take out a data center somewhere in Bulgaria, but but the equivalent of a cyber nuke, go in there.
This is where drones can help too, right?
Unless you're Venezuelan Maduro and he got taken out by a drone over the weekend. Did you see that?
That was a scam. I heard this morning that maybe he staged it for some freaking crazy reason.
He could have, and you know what? That's not above people. In other words, what you do is you create chaos, and you create. All you have to do is watch the movie V.
Because I watched the video of that, and it looked like he and his security team, and for that matter, even his wife, they didn't move very quickly. Like if I thought somebody was going to shoot at me from a drone, I'd be on the ground, rolling for cover, doing something. They all just sort of stood there, like. And I thought, maybe there's some credence to this Venezuela scam drone thing.
Well, here's what happens with, again, here's the plus side of the internet now. There's an old joke. What's the difference between love and YouTube?
I don't know.
YouTube is forever. So there is nothing that is out there that won't be exposed. So if it is a fake, you know what you're going to get? Somebody is going to have shot some video. Yeah. Somebody's going to see something. You're going to have all of these little, which could not have happened 30 years ago. You'll now start having a lot of that stuff. And look, a lot of this too is video analysis. It's looking at stuff and going, there's no way this could happen. In other words,
right.
If you have a bomb goes off and the bomb's going to go off, you're less likely to jump as much as the people who have no idea it's going off. And so if you're the only one that's calm, cool, and collected, go, yes, it's a bomb. Either you got nerves of steel or you kind of knew it was going on. So we shall find out, as they say.
It's interesting because I'm a huge fan of conspiracy theories just because I find them fun. And of course, I love Bigfoot. And, those conspiracy theories are just really fun. And we have like the Bigfoot Museum here in the next town over, a town called Felton. And I love to go in and talk to that guy and why the government's hiding these facts from us and stuff. I love all that. It's and I talk to him like it's totally legit. But my belief on this, and you tell me, there's all of that you just described. And in addition to that, it's like how many people need to be in on that kind of a conspiracy. And in the world that we have today, one of them just has to send some emails to WikiLeaks or whatever, and the whole conspiracy. There's just no way you can have like 3,000 people in on a conspiracy, and they're all going to shut up about it, right? That's my theory, anyway.
If more than one person knows, there's no way to keep a secret. And that's been proven time and time again. I'll tell you, it goes back to the whole deal about everybody. They created everybody said it was a conspiracy to frame OJ. Even Saturday Night Live did a spoof of it. Hey, are you in on this, Judge Ito? They think George Bush was behind that. We took down the Twin Towers and bombed the Pentagon, and certain people got out of the country. These are all conspiracy. There's a movie out there called Loose Change. You'll see it on Netflix.
I've seen it.
Yeah, look,
I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I got good friends of mine that were the first responders to the Pentagon, because the Pentagon is in Arlington County, Virginia. I can tell you right now, a real plane hit that, real people died, and there's no such thing as, when these guys actually were in a show with actual mechanical engineers and people who built the stuff, they folded like a cheap suit. You can have a conspiracy theory, but a conspiracy theory in the face of real facts folds, because
all that 9/11 stuff, again, I find it entertaining. Yeah. I know it's hurtful to some people, so that part of it, I really, like all this Alex Jones stuff. Did you see the Facebook took Alex Jones off the air?
Yeah.
And did you see what Alex Jones's lawyer's defense is?
Huh.
And I'm no lawyer, but this is what I read, that Alex Jones is the equivalent of the WWE wrestling. And everybody knows it's a fake thing that he's doing. And so he's not a journalist. And so everybody who goes to the WWE knows that it's and I don't like to call it fake, because I think those athletes are real athletes.
They're real athletes, but the outcome is predetermined.
Correct. And that there's a choreographed piece to it and so forth. So
it's entertainment.
It's entertainment, and they put the word E in there on purpose, right? World Wrestling Entertainment is the name of the company. And so they are arguing that he's entertainment and he's putting on a show, and he's not a journalist.
So here's the thing. You got me there, because I got to tell you, how much I've read of Alex Jones?
I go to InfoWars from time to time. I like to consume all the spectrum, right? So yeah. But I'm not deep into his stuff, and I've heard him on a handful of podcasts, and
but here's what he's doing.
I think it's very damaging, right? When he comes out and says Sandy Hook was bullshit.
That's that's one of the reasons why I listen to stuff like that. There are things that fly in the face of proverbial common sense. If you have a legitimate argument to make, if you think that, hey, what was responsible for Sandy Hook was lack of good mental health laws, or there should have been this or that, that's a different thing. But when you say that it didn't happen, that's like saying that 9/11 didn't happen, or that it was a conspiracy to bring.
And all this bullshit about childhood actors, and are you guys out of your minds?
Well, it's like the Parkland, Florida shooting, where they said, hey, this was staged, and some of the stuff. It's like, that's why I don't buy that stuff, and that's why we've missed the ability to have good, critical conversations, to do critical analysis, critical thinking, to say, in 2 steps, I can show you why this whole thing is BS. But yet, instantly, what people do, they want to read something because it echoes their own beliefs, and that people who are conspiracy theorists about the government will believe anything that has a conspiracy theory thread going to it. Why? Because it closely models their own belief. It's human nature. This is going full circle. Why are the Russians so successful at this? They've understand how to find those echo chambers, those peoples who have certain belief systems, and amplify those with digital and social media, so that you respond more to it. It's persuasive technology. It's why Instagram works. It's why the Russians are successful at influence operations.
And that's why today more than ever, A, conversations matter. Yep. And B, we need to think.
And I'll tell you the other thing you need.
It's not a good time to be stupid. Oh, yeah.
Jack Bauer. Yeah. Jack Bauer's on the job.
I love it. Anything else before we wrap, Morgan?
Dude, hey, you've been, first of all, I will tell you personally, and I do mean this, Tom Schwab and I were just talking about you last week. You had a shout out to him in the book. I actually read through all your credits and everything, and Jamie J is in my mastermind group. You've been a great inspiration, and actually, for what I'm doing now, I would not have done this had I not read Play Bigger and Niche Down, and realized that I've got the tools now, the confidence now to say, we're going to go out and create a killer category. We're going to dominate this market. To everybody else, it's either lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way, because guess what, fellas? We're coming.
I love it. Thank you. That's very, very sweet of you to say, Morgan. I love these conversations with you. When we were exchanging emails, I thought you should just be on a, you tell me, but on a fairly regular basis. I think you're a fascinating guy. You're a fun guy. And I deeply appreciate that, we've been building this relationship, and I super appreciate your kind words.
Well, hey, look, I'm more than happy to help you anytime. I can come on and we can talk about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I can talk about Jack Bauer. We can talk about teens and technology. I love all of those things, artificial intelligence, how it's going to change the world. But hey, biggest thing is you've got to keep getting the message out, because you know why? We're going to lose a whole generation of entrepreneurs because people are too afraid to take risks. They're afraid to have big ideas. They want to be in a safe space. There are no safe spaces, and there are no shortcuts to success. Read the book, do the work. That's the way you get there.
Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you, Morgan. Be legendary, my friend, as I know you will.
I will catch you when I'm out in the Bay Area. You bet, bud.
Please, I would love to see you. Give me a little notice.
I did. I gave you a week.
Oh, well, whatever. I don't know. My wife, we were busy. I don't know. Whatever.
I know, hobnobbing with the Illuminati and all the other conspiracy people.
Yeah, exactly. I was at the Bigfoot Museum that day. Talk to you soon, brother. Whew. How's that for a conversation? He's not your typical security guy now, is he? Or police officer or anti-terrorism expert. If you know somebody who would love this episode, why not email it to them right now? And we would love you just a little bit extra if you shared this episode on social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, or wherever else. Your shares go a long way to helping us grow the show. And while I'm asking you for stuff, I'd also love it if you gave us a review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever else you're consuming Legends and Losers. Your iTunes make a big difference to us, and they help people find us. Now, I'd like to tell you about our good friends at NetSuite. Check out netsuite.com/legends, and NetSuite is offering a 1-hour growth review for free, gratis, that is, for you to talk to an expert in your industry about the barriers, challenges, and opportunities for growth. So go to netsuite.com/legends, and you can set that up. Now, why would you do that? NetSuite is the #1 provider of cloud ERP. They offer growing businesses a cloud management system that provides you with real-time visibility into all of the operations of your business, a unified platform for ERP, financials, CRM, and e-commerce. Companies like Lucky Brand Jeans, the Boston Globe, Honey Stinger. I don't know if you've had a Honey Stinger. They're very tasty. I use them when I go into the backcountry. They're like an energy food. Williams-Sonoma, the retailer, Blue Microphones. Another company I love, Big Agnes. They make tents and a lot of great outdoor gear. I have a Big Agnes tent myself. It's fantastic. And 40,000 other organizations just like yours use NetSuite to turbocharge their growth. So check them out, netsuite.com/legends. And you can find us at legendsandlosers.com. We got a great website. For more on Morgan's background, you can check out the show notes for this episode. And and if you want to email us, blackhole@legendsandlosers.com. And if you want me on Twitter, I'm at lochhead with 2 H's on Twitter. All right. We would like to thank my new book with the amazing Heather Clancy, Niche Down Book. Check it out, nichedownbook.com. And you're going to learn why there are riches in niches. Equity Directory, connecting startups to the talent and resources they need to build a legendary business. If you are in the startup ecosystem, you got to be on equitydirectory.com. The good people at onelifefullylive.org. This is the nonprofit helping you dream, plan, and live your best life. Check out onelifefullylived.org. Spiro, the sales app for salespeople who like to make money. Check them out at spiro.ai. The official coffee roasters of Legends and Losers in beautiful Santa Cruz, California, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Tokyo, and always at vervecoffee.com. Now, do you need a new corporate website? Are you a B2B company? Check out atre.net. That's atrenet. atre.net, B2B corporate websites that make your company better than your best salesperson. Category design advisors. If you want to, you want to define your own niche and get nouveau riche, categorydesign.advisors.com. Interview Valet. If you are a thought leader and you want to get your leading thoughts on some podcasts, check out interviewvalet.com. And the World Wildlife Fund, because our planet and wildlife matter. Check out wwf.org. All right. This oddcast is the sole property of the Legends and Losers Oddcast Network, and we would love you if you shared the shit out of it right now. We do need to remind you that all rights remain disturbed, and we have to tell you, the producers of this oddcast might have been consuming libations. Listen to Lincoln Park. Remember, we are never tested on GMOs. Support your local security guru. Don't be lame. Get out of the passing lane. Never turn your back on the ocean. Shower at least weekly. And in the event of a 4-hour erection, why not call someone who likes you? All right. Thank you, Dandy Candy. I love you, Mom and Dad. And hey, Colin, this oddcast really ties the room together, doesn't it? Today, our deepest apologies go out to Elizabeth Holmes, CEO of Theranos. Sorry, Lizzie, we just ran out of time for you. That's it. Thank you so much for investing part of your life with us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon on Legends and Losers.